Jordana,
Hello.
thanks for coming on the pod.
I already spoke over you. That's a good start.
I'm excited for this one because I feel like this is going to help me out a lot. Confidence is a big thing. It's something I struggle with a lot. So I'm excited to have you here.
Amazing. You don't look like you struggle with confidence just because you're popping out of your shirt there, Jack.
Well, that's a good place to start. What is confidence?
It depends. Are we talking about personal confidence or professional confidence?
Both.
Let's
go personal first.
Personal, I would say it is doing what you want and being who you are and being unafraid and unapologetic about it.
Mm. And how do you do that? I know what you're talking about. So how do you figure out who you are and what you want to do?
It sounds cliche, but whatever lights your heart on fire, whatever lights your spirit on fire, whatever truly brings you joy and is a passion point is, in my opinion, where confidence begins. Because if we're not doing what we truly love and we're doing what we think other people think we should do, then we're never going to be truly aligned.
Mm.
So it's going to be outward facing fuel and motivation, which ultimately is never going to make us happy inside. Which is why I said personal or professional, because it's like, am I confident with who I am or am I confident in the job that I do? They're different skills, I would say.
In what way?
Because if you're a former tradie, you can be confident in your skills, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you love who you are.
Mm.
So there's skill element and then there's internal element.
Okay.
I mean, there's many, I could say, and there's this element, and there's that element. It's like, how long's a piece of string?
Yeah. That's a good example because at one point I was quite good at being a tradie. Like I was carpenter. I loved carpentry. I feel like I was very good at it and I could produce a good job at no matter what I was doing, but I always felt like it wasn't me. So when I started being me and doing what I wanted to, I felt like I got a lot more confident.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how does somebody go through that journey? Because it's very hard to tell, like, when you're good at something and whether you actually love doing it or not. So is there some sort of way to figure that out? Like what would you say to somebody in that position?
I would start with, what do you love? What could you do for hours and hours and hours and never get bored? Because it's when we lose track of time and when we immerse ourselves in something and the rest of the world around us just like disappears, that is love. That is a source of confidence, or at least one of.
So what other sources are there?
Good question. I think whatever brings you joy as well. But now we're moving into the joy territory, not confidence. So you could love having spas and ice baths, but it doesn't necessarily make you confident.
Okay. So where does confidence come from? Like, I know you said happiness and all that and finding what you love doing, but you could love what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I know a few people absolutely love what they're doing, but definitely aren't confident to, say, go public speaking or sit in front of a camera, for example. Like I've had a few opportunities to get some guests on that have very good things to say, but as soon as I sit them down in front of a camera and put a microphone in front of their face, all that good information, what they have to say just isn't there anymore. Yeah.
Now we're coming back to, is it personal or is it business?
Okay.
Yeah. Because I would say now anything that involves us expressing, let's say your example of, all of their good knowledge in a more professional context, that is how confident are we at actually, how much do we believe in what we're saying? And how much do we believe our voice is important and how much do we believe that we're the right person to say it? So a lot of that piece comes down to self-worth.
Okay.
Which is why I said there's a million different ways that we can go around actually finding the confidence.
Let's dive into the self-worth then.
Yeah.
Because like I just said at the start, like sometimes I struggle with confidence. And when I'm doing this podcast, like I've been doing personal training. I first got my qualification back in 2008 and I've had thousands of clients since then. So I know what to do to help people get results. But even sometimes I have self-doubt. And I guess that would come down to self-worth. How do you overcome that? Because a lot of people will have that knowledge and almost that evidence to back up what they can actually do. But then that self-worth creeps in.
Yeah. I think it's always going to be there to a degree. It's more about how much fear am I willing to face and still move forward with what I believe is the right step versus allow this scary new thing to stop me. Because it's a myth to think that if we're doing something that frightens us, we're never going to feel fear. But it's how much can you actually do when you're faced with that fear. Like I used to be a stand-up comedian. I felt scared every single time I was on stage. And every single time the MC would call my name, I'd be like, they'd be like, now I'd like to welcome Jordana Borensztajn. I'd be like, please not me, please not me. Why did I do this? I hate this. And then I get up there, I say my first joke, everyone starts laughing. And I'm like, I love this. I don't want to be anywhere else. So like, I always feel fear. Like I've done 1,000 things in my career that make me terrified, but it's, am I willing to actually push through that, what feels like an impenetrable wall of fear? Because I know that what is on the other side is so much more growth and so much more expansion and so much more joy and so many more opportunities that I can't experience while I'm staying on this side. So there's, I think, you know, I train a lot of people in public speaking. I don't think you ever get rid of the fear. It's how do you manage it and how much can you manage and still move through?
Okay. So in those workshops, what would you be telling people how would you manage that fear? Oh,
breathing, movement, music. So I did not know how to breathe for the first 5 years of my comedy career. And I thought, oh, you breathe in, you breathe out. But when you actually just take a deep breath in and deep breath out, you just get like exhausted. So I tried everything to try to manage my physical body because my energy was super high and then super low. And I'd do like a comedy festival season and then I would crash. So I tried so many different ways to learn how to take better care of my physicality. And then I found Feldenkrais, Alexander's technique, body movement. And then through that, I found biofeedback. And through that, I found a breathing technique, which is 4 breaths in, hold for 2, and then 4 breaths out. And so you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, hold 2, out 2, 3, 4.
So I'm literally going.
That's the fitness version. You can just go subtle and just I love how you're like, you're adding the Wim Hof. You don't need the Wim Hof. This is supposed to calm you down, not amp you up.
Okay.
So I'll take you through.
Yeah.
Okay. So think of something that makes you scared. Think about I don't know, imagine someone's going to walk in here and it's going to frighten you, or any moment now you have to go out there and give a big presentation. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and you can close your eyes. So breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold 2, out 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold 2, out 2, 3, 4. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold 2, out 2, 3, 4. One word, how do you feel?
Calm.
Nice. It's an instant reset that allows us to get out of the noise in our head and come back to here. And the other reason why it's so important is because when we do get, especially fear around public speaking, our brain and our body can disconnect and our physiology can take over. And when we resist the fear that we feel, if our palms are sweaty or our heart's racing or we get butterflies and we think, oh my gosh, I don't want to be nervous, that actually adds to the cycle. And so our brain and our body actually feed each other. So if we're thinking, I'm not ready, my content's going to suck, they're not going to like me, that's sending a signal to our body going, I'm nervous. If we're feeling butterflies, that's sending a signal back to our brain going, uh-oh, we're not ready. Uh-oh, I don't want to be nervous. So this 4-2-4 breaks and interrupts that self-sabotaging cycle that we easily get into before something's super nervous. So the breathing is amazing. And it's the best tool, I think, because no one can actually see how you're breathing. No one's going to go, oh my God, Jack, are you doing the 4-2-4? I can't believe it. Although with your body type, you'd probably be like more of a 5-2-5.
Or if I bring in the Wim Hof.
Yeah, exactly. No one's ever done that before. I now have a fitness version. Fantastic.
Yeah, that's I've never really seen it put like that before, like breaking that cycle of fear.
Yeah.
Any other techniques?
Yes, movement and music. So when we get nervous, you know how you see people pacing? We got extra adrenaline, extra cortisol, extra hormones flushing through our system, all to gear us up for this situation that we're not normally ready for. But we don't know how to manage it. So it's got to be exercise. It's got to come out. So if someone's pacing, they're not intentionally pacing. They're pacing because they're like freaking out with all of this extra energy, and it's unfortunately coming out in an unintentional way. That's also why we sweat. It's got to come out. So either we manage it or it comes out through shaking. So movement and music are brilliant. Because if we're moving beforehand, we are exercising the energy as much as we can so that it doesn't overtake us in the moment. Music is the best because we're using our throat chakra, we're singing. If it's a song that you love, you're dancing. So it's all about how do I actually manage this extra flush that's moving through me so it doesn't catapult me into, whoa. Because once our brain and our body are disconnected, really hard to come back. And I've been there 1,000 times.
So singing and dancing.
Yeah, what's your song?
That's two things I need to start learning.
You don't sing or dance?
No.
Oh, well, you know
Come
what?
on, I'm a white guy.
You don't sing or dance. What if I put on Tina Turner's Simply the Best, as if you wouldn't sing along to that?
Look, there's singing and there's what I do, and I wouldn't call it singing.
You can butcher a song. I won't judge you if you butcher a song, as long as you think you're singing.
So, in your experience, does breaking that cycle get easier?
Yeah. A lot of the confidence that comes in public speaking is showing yourself that you can do it. Because when we get swallowed up by our own fear and we believe our own fear because our fear feels so overwhelming, we don't question it. It's such a heavy emotion and it's so paralyzing that we're just like, I can't do that. And then we've had like one little breakthrough or one experience we've never had and we're like, oh my gosh, I survived. I can do that. I've had a little bit of evidence and it does get easier and easier. 1,000%. But it takes practice.
What about body language? Can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Because that's something I've delved into before, as in trying to improve my body language to make people more comfortable in a conversation like this. Also trying to prove to myself I am more confident.
Yeah.
All that sort of stuff. So body language, talk to me about where do we start?
Okay, so we want to always start. It depends. What's the setting? What setting are we talking about? Are you up on stage or are you in a pretty casual?
Let's just say most people here listening to the podcast are getting into their health and fitness journey. Mm-hmm. The gym can be quite intimidating. So let's just say they're walking into a room that makes them feel intimidated and they just want to be more confident in doing their own thing.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I like to say imagine there is glitter coming out of your chest. So what happens is the moment we feel a lack of confidence in any way, we shut down. Whether that is arms closed, arms locked, right? Or it's our heads down, or we're hunching on, one leg's higher than the other, or we've got a hand twisting around. Anything that closes our body off makes us feel like our body and our emotional state are directly connected. So if I said to you now, for example, you're an actor, okay? Imagine you're an actor for a hot minute. Give me your best sad. Go sad. Show me what does sad look like. Okay, what's happened? You drop your body, yeah?
Yeah.
That's a pretty low-key sad, yeah. Jack. Can you go again? Like really sad. Go really sad.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now you're too happy.
Yeah.
Go. Show me what a superhero looks like. Yes. Okay. Stop. What did you do? You're opening your chest, right?
Yeah, for those that are listening,
He's
basically double bicep flex. Open up my chest.
Yeah, that's the fitness version for all those listening. And when he was sad, what did you do? You hunched over, right? So even when we're hypothetically trying to come up with what these states look like, we have to use our physiology. So we can use our physiology to change our emotional state in a second. So I would say the first thing to do is imagine that you've just opening your chest. Because when we open our chest, we hold our head higher. When we hold our head higher, our eye line is higher. When our eye line is higher, it's a confident pose. So we can take half a second to actually feel more confident. And part of the reason we cross our arms or part of the reason we don't know what to do with our hands is because we have some part of us that is closed off. And I could imagine if I did the whole podcast like this, and I'm talking about confidence. And for those of you that are listening, I'm like crossed arms, hunching over, almost eating the microphone. Does this look confident to you? Okay. And I've not changed anything except for now I've opened. How different is it?
Yeah.
So physiology is an amazing tool to change our state. So I would say walk into that gym, imagine glitter pouring out of your chest, spraying people with your beautiful glitter, and that alone is enough to make you feel confident.
I find when I feel...
Wait, can I just stop you there?
Yeah.
And caveat? I don't lift any heavy... I don't lift anything heavy in gym, so just be careful with that glitter chest when you walk into the gym. Yep.
You don't lift heavy yet.
That's right.
I'll get you there one day. So what about communicating? Because sometimes when I walk into the gym, again, I might feel not very confident. I know myself. I've worked on this, so I'll stand up tall and that sort of stuff. And when I talk to people, like just say hello, good morning, or good afternoon, whatever, that sort of breaks the barrier as well.
Yeah.
Is there something in that, just like opening yourself up and communicating to somebody?
Yep. First thing I would say is smile. When we get in our head and we get insecure and we think, oh my gosh, I don't belong here, or I don't know anyone here, or all of those thoughts, first thing that goes is our smile. So we've got more than 44 muscles in the face, right? So again, we can use the process of using our physiology to change our emotional state by we're going to do a little exercise here. Just say to me, it's great to have you on the podcast today. No smile, nothing, straight face.
You're challenging me.
I know.
It's great to have you on the podcast.
Okay. All right. A little bit monotone and it was hard for you. No, that's okay. Now, all I want you to do is just smile before you start and give me the same sentence.
It's great to have you on the podcast.
Okay. So for those who are listening, his hands moved. He's smiling. His head moved forwards and backwards and his whole body wanted to come in. Because we're naturally expressing with our whole body. It's just in any moment where we feel uncomfortable, all eyes are on us, unfamiliar setting, it's like we forget everything we ever learned and we don't use any of our physicality. So how can we possibly feel confident or authentic or in our natural expression if we're not using our body? So a lot of these tools are, what do you need in a circumstance that makes you feel uncomfortable to be the trigger that unlocks everything? And sometimes it is enough of just smiling. Because when you're smiling, it's sending beautiful chemicals through your system going, hang on a second, I'm feeling happy, but I think I'm nervous. What's going on here? And it malfunctions that fear drive.
And that would be a way to then start breathing and break that cycle even more.
Yeah, you can breathe 4-2-4, smile before you start. Imagine glitter coming out of your chest. If you see someone that you've never seen walking into a gym and they've got a chest open, they're smiling, you're like, I don't know who that is, but I like them already, because we can pick up someone's energy the moment we see them. We can tell if someone's, closed off or afraid and doesn't want to talk to anyone, or we can see if someone just looks like a amazing, happy, high vibe person. We're in charge of much more than we think. And again, it comes back to our voice of fear is so loud.
It is.
And we rarely challenge it. And when we don't challenge it, it feels just scarier and scarier and scarier and scarier.
Why do you think people don't challenge that?
Because it's scary.
Yeah.
And a lot of us don't like to change, and it's easier to just do what you're doing and maneuver around the fear than having to try to tackle it, because we go into worst case scenario, what if? What's going to happen? Our brain loves to take us to all of the what if places. And we imagine the worst case scenario.
What do you do in that circumstance? Like when you're imagining the worst case scenario, what's your go-to and what's your thought process?
I use humour. So I will use the humour strategy of exaggeration and go, okay, what is the worst thing that could possibly happen? No, worse. And then it gets so ridiculous and so outrageous and so stupid that it's like, okay, that's never going to happen in a million years. Humour is actually, an incredible therapeutic tool and also a very good healing tool, and particularly good at challenging fears. Because it's like, let's say, what's something that you'd be afraid of? Okay, let's say this person's walking into the gym, right? Okay, what's the worst thing that happens if they don't talk to anyone? Let's realistically, what could be a perceived worst thing?
They walk back out.
Okay, what's even worse than that if they don't talk to anyone? Worse. They'll never be allowed back in the gym again.
Yeah.
Yeah, worse. They'll never be allowed into any gym ever again in their entire life. Worse.
They fall and break a leg on the way outside of the gym.
Yeah, and then worse.
Everybody sees. I don't know.
And then worse. They'll never get a membership anywhere ever again.
Yeah.
Like, can you see how it's like what we think is so insane? The further we go, the more outrageous. It's like, you're not going to break your leg because you don't say hi to someone. You're not going to, we stop at that first step, but it's like, what's actually past that? And if we do it in a playful way, humour is the fastest way to break through fear.
Have you always used humour, or is that something that you learnt to do or use?
No, I learnt it. I went out on a bad date, which pushed me into a career in comedy. So every cloud has a silver lining. And then once I learned the strategies and the techniques, it became a big therapeutic tool.
Without diving too much into the date, but how did it go?
It was a terrible date.
How did it go from a bad date to jumping into comedy?
So it was like one of those dates that you always hear about, like, you know, when he was like 10 years older than his photo. We had this amazing banter back and forth, and I was like, oh, he's witty, he's smart, he's, you know, and I think his sister ended up writing all of the messages for him. And then after this really good banter, we finally go out to a cafe, and I'm looking around, can't see him. And there's this person waving at me, looks, as I said, 10 years older. We sit down, he was like hungover, slurring his words. We didn't end up just not having a good time, but we ended up like arguing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I left like shell shocked going, I'm going to be a lonely cat lady for the rest of my life. What on earth am I going to do? And then I got home and I called one of my friends, and I couldn't talk because I was like quite traumatized. And all I could do is imitate the way he spoke and his hungover slurs. And then by the end of that conversation, she was laughing, and I was like, So I called another friend, added in extra exaggeration and enthusiasm, and by the end we were both like laughing so hard we were crying. And I was like, I've got to learn comedy because this is actually really therapeutic. And then I learned comedy theory, comedy lessons, and there's a lot of methods and formulas in theory in comedy. And I started to write stand-up and very quickly became a stand-up comedian. And then everything that annoyed me, everything that frustrated me became joke material. So that was a really cool healing process and way cheaper than therapy.
Is that the theory, like comedy theory, or the method?
Like
find things that frustrate you and 100%. Just make a joke out of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of the best comedians and comedy teachers of all time always say comedy comes down to truth and pain. And so we use a lot of our emotional drivers are a big source of comedy. So what irritates you, what frustrates you, what annoys you. Like if you look at some of the best comedians, there's that driver, which is part of their attitude. Attitude is also really important. So when attitude and emotion come together, beautiful for comedy material. I
love that. I love that. So how would somebody go about doing that? So somebody else just been on a bad date. How do you, and obviously they're going to be feeling sad and feel like they're going to be alone forever. They're never going to find anybody. How do you turn that into comedy?
So you start by just writing a list. What annoys me? I'm annoyed by dung, 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 dung. What frustrates me? This. What makes me angry? This. And in that process alone, you're actually getting it out of your body onto a piece of paper, and it's turning it from a lived experience into this is actually material that I could use. So it actually gives you a little bit of distance, and you've kind of already gone through the, I hated that, because it's like on a piece of paper and it's away from you. But there's also, there's a million different ways to write a joke. There's setup, premise, punch. So if someone wanted to dive into comedy theory, it's really easy to go, I might choose this particular theory and try to, make a joke out of this.
Can we do that now?
Yeah, we can use a rule of 3 joke.
Yeah?
Yeah. What do you want to
do? Like something that frustrates me?
Yeah.
People in the gym on their phone, sitting on a machine and taking forever because they're not actually exercising, they're just sitting on their phone.
Okay, so what frustrates you the most?
The fact that I can't use the machine.
What about them?
What frustrates about them?
Yeah. What else is frustrating?
Just they're being inconsiderate.
Okay, inconsiderate. What else is frustrating?
Usually their posture annoys me. That's just my personal trait, because they're usually hunched over. I'm like, I just want to walk over and just pull their shoulders back.
What else annoys you?
Can
you see how you're getting less annoyed purely by getting these out of your system?
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, what else? What else is in this tank of aggravation? It's like once you even empty it a little bit, it just gets lighter alone. What else is annoying? And you're going to have to go harder and on more curves and bends to try to answer these questions.
I can't finish my workout, so it's wasting my time.
Wasting time. Yeah. What else?
They're on social media, and that annoys me because you shouldn't be on social media in the gym.
Oh, now we're getting into Jack's gym etiquette.
Not saying I don't do any of these.
I feel like you need to write down Jack's gym etiquette and like take this laminated sign with
I'll
you
put it up in the
anytime.
gym.
Yeah, anytime you're near a piece of equipment, so that they know the rules if they get within like a 5-meter radius of you.
They're not working out properly.
Why does that annoy you?
Because you're in the gym, you're there. Most people don't have time to work out, and if you've got time to sit and scroll, it's not fair on everybody else, and it's just annoying. Right? If you're at the gym, put in the time and the effort.
That's interesting. Because you're annoyed that they're wasting their time.
Yes. So they're wasting my time and their time.
Okay, so we've got wasting time times 4. Yeah, multiple layers on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, can't use a machine, inconsiderate, posture, wasting time, using social media. What else aggravates you?
I feel like that's sort of wrapped it up into the, yeah. And and I guess because they're closed off in that position, I can't talk to them. I feel like I can't approach them.
You can't connect, okay. So there's multiple ways we can go around this, as my brain considers this. So one technique is called the rule of 3. So in literature, in history, a rule of 3 has a charm. So 3 little pigs, ready, set, go, lights, camera, action. So if we are about to share a list with someone, if we take items 1 and 2 and then we flip the third, that surprise makes us laugh. Because the reason we laugh in comedy is because a comedian is taking us down a certain direction, and then there's a gap between where we think we're going and where we end. A lot of comedy coaches call this shattering the assumption, because we think we're being taken in one direction, and then, your Seinfelds will go, here's a really smart observational twist. We end up here and we're like, oh, I didn't see that coming. The other reason that we laugh, the complete almost opposite to this is sex, nudity, swear words also get that same gap of laughter, but it's like cheap laughter, because it's the same. We're going in a certain direction, and then the audience goes, oh, I can't believe they said that, which is the difference between high-level laughter and like cheap laughs.
Okay.
So with a rule of 3, what we want to do is we want to have some sort of premise that makes us think we're going in a certain direction, and then 1 thing, 2 thing, and then a third twist.
Okay, I've got nothing.
Okay. All right, as I workshop this. Okay, so can't use machine, inconsiderate, posture, wasting time. What we could do is either use one of these as the twist. So you could say the best thing about going to gym, I love going to gym so much. To spend an hour at gym is the most amazing thing in the world. What do you actually love? What do you love about gym?
Moving my body.
Yeah, I love moving my body.
Lifting weights, lifting heavy things, feeling strong.
What do you love about seeing other people at gym?
It motivates me that they're motivated to work out as well.
Yep.
Everybody's working towards the same goal.
Everyone's working towards... So we could go a positive and then use one of these annoyances as a negative. So I just love going to gym. I'm so motivated by seeing other people being so motivated. I love that everyone's working towards, the same goals. And I love how so many people take the best equipment and waste every single moment on there by scrolling their phone. So can you see how it's like real, not, yes, no,
yeah.
True, false.
Yeah.
So that's a positive twist. The other way that we could do it is say, oh my God, the most annoying thing about gym is that you can't use the machine. The most annoying thing about other people who are on their phones is that they're inconsiderate, they've got a bad posture, and then we would twist it to have a third. This could be, you could write a lot with this.
And just out from that one little thing, it's very therapeutic.
100%, because now you're smiling and nothing's annoying you.
No.
And in fact, the best part is that when you learn to look at life through a comedy lens, changes everything.
And I'll probably walk into the gym, see that guy doing that again and laugh at him.
Yeah, because you're going to be like, oh, what else is annoying? That's funny. Like if I go out on a bad date now, I'm like, there's a part of me that's like, please let this be good. But there's another part of me that's like, this is bad. This is amazing content. Yeah. So once you learn to look at life through a comedic lens, it's actually really empowering, because it means that there's nothing that's going to annoy you or upset you, because the moment it does, it just turns into golden material. So it's really cool.
I think that's very useful at the moment, especially now, economy's bad or whatever. I don't really watch the news, but there's a lot of bad things.
There's a lot of people in the gym on their phones watching the news. You should ask them.
Exactly. Scrolling
the ones with the bad posture, wasting their time. Hey, as you're on the rower just checking the stock market, can you give me a heads up as to what's happening?
So for all those people stuck on their phone on the machines, like, how would you suggest they start looking at the world through a lens of like funniness, like comedian, like as a comedian?
Good one. I think the first step would be to, if you have an interest in comedy, it's easier because you're going to want to see the world differently. Because one of the mindset shifts that I made is what can I see that other people don't see? How can I inverse this situation? Like Seinfeld, he'll talk about cotton buds, right? Stuff that we use every single day. Like one of his genius, not one of his genius is that he was able to write the best jokes with the stuff that we use, do, live, breathe every day. But he found these tiny little nuances to flip it around. So I think the first place is, what can I see that, how do I flip this situation around? What's here that I wouldn't normally observe? Or how do I see something that's hidden? Is a good place to start.
And then write down all the things that annoy you.
And then write down all the things that annoy you. Yes. Any kind of frustration, anger, annoyance, irritation. That's a very good place to start to channel possible comedy content.
We've found things that annoy us.
Yeah.
We've written a joke. Now what do we do with that joke?
Go to a comedy club. So there's actually a lot of workshops that I would say is the best step for someone, which alone is a amazing tool for confidence. Because just to go through that, you feel like, I felt you when you do your first ever comedy set, 5 minutes, it's like, why did I sign up for it? It is one of the scariest things in the entire world. To get through it and to get on the other side of that, the character building, like the amount of strength it gives you, and to know that you've gone through one of the most difficult things ever is just amazing. Because comedy's hard. Highest highs, lowest lows, in my experience. So I would say, next step would be find a workshop. There's a lot of online workshops, but there are a lot of like in-person workshops that do culminate with your first 5 minutes on stage, surrounded by supportive friends and family, which is the perfect way to start to do your 5 minutes. But just the process of, writing comedy, having to, learn it and remember it and then perform it, it's a game changer. Doesn't matter who you are, game changer. Whether you do anything beyond that alone is massive accomplishment.
Yeah. And I feel like even if somebody was going through some issues and they wrote a joke about it, went through everything we just went through and just set it in that light with their friends and family without jumping on stage, that could be quite powerful as well.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Just the process alone is super therapeutic. Even just the mindset shift of how can I turn this into a joke is enough to give you, what we want a gap between our connection to an experience and the observation that we can make around it, because that alone is enough distance. Like if let's say someone cuts you off in traffic and you get angry, right? You're pretty angry. You're heated in the moment if you are the type to get angry. If you stop for a second and go, what annoys me about this? What's annoying about it? What is the worst thing that Melbourne drivers do? They do this, they do that, they do this, they do that. Already you're looking at the situation differently, and that objectivity gives you space. And that space allows you to be more regulated in your emotional response and also come up with good content.
Very good.
And a good comedy spin.
Any highlights from your career as a comedian?
Oh, so many.
What's
lowlights or highlights?
Well, let's go the highlight that stands out the most and then the low light as well.
Highlight that stands out the most, I think, was moving from a 7-minute spot to a 55-minute show in the Comedy Festival.
Wow.
Against advice around me that was like, you can't do that. Like it was, I wrote really fast, and so I had way more content than I had stage time. And so I was just like, I just keep writing jokes, so I'm just going to go and do a show. Whereas it's kind of like, at that time anyway, it's sort of, you do like a gradual, 5 minutes here, 7 minutes. And then, but I was just like, stuff this, I'm ready. So all of a sudden I was doing a 55-minute show in the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. And
why do you think you were ready?
Just because I was writing so much.
And you just had so much content, you felt like you could talk for 50 minutes.
Yeah, and I loved the challenge of a show and the creativity of putting it together and trying to come up with a theme.
How far into the career were you?
Not far. I started in 2000 and... I can't remember. It was either 10 or 11, I think. So yeah, not far, like not far at all.
And how did it go?
It was amazing.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Where was it?
It was at a place in the city that I can't remember. Ooh, a little bar in the city. They had like this area with a stage. It was really, it was fun. It was fun. But I would say highest highs, lowest lows in comedy, just because there's so much stuff that can happen in one show that changes it, because it's so audience. My shows anyway, they were very like interactive. And so the energy is highly dependent on the banter, which is highly dependent on the interactions, which is highly dependent on often who's sitting in the front 2 rows. So like if one mobile phone goes off, or you've got someone that doesn't want to play along, whereas like, you know, you might have the most amazing banter and, you know, an audience member comes in late and that turns into an incredible moment. So it's really like, it's all very spontaneous. The planned stuff is planned, but for all of the crowd work, it's very spontaneous.
I was going to say.
So I just played footsies with you under the table.
Giving you a little. That's quite hard to do. Like 55 minutes of holding the attention of a whole room. Like I do one-on-one PTs, and sometimes 60 minutes. I'm like, I've got to, you know, bring that energy.
Do you know why it was 55 minutes? Because when I had to apply for the comedy festival, you fill out the brochure details long before I'd written the show. So you apply in like November. The comedy festival, maybe when I did it was November. Comedy festival isn't until March, April. So you have to like do this little drop down boxes. How long's your show? And I was like, I don't know, 50? Nah, that's too short. 60? That's too long. 55. So then I had to make sure that my show was 55 minutes. Yeah, so yeah, it's a pretty weird number.
But holding the attention of the room for that long, how do you go about that? Is that just practice, or is there techniques in that? Like,
ooh. Are we talking comedy or speaking?
Is there a difference?
Yeah. Difference in the expectations of the audience. When we go to see a comedy show, we are harsh with very little tolerance. We are, as in the
spectators?
Yeah, we're like, we don't know it.
We're expecting to be entertained.
Yeah, and we don't say it, but it's like, make me laugh or you suck. Like that's what we're either like, this show is awesome, this comedian is awesome, or they're terrible. There's no, oh, they were okay, there were a few jokes. We're not lenient like that. We're like, you're awesome, or I'm never coming to see you again. It's a very like, very extreme in terms of, I like you and this is great, or I'm going to tell everyone you're horrible.
Yeah, right. And then what about public speaking?
Very different.
In what way?
Well, the public speaking that I do is focused on education. Very much, and I bring comedy in. So when you're educating someone and then you bring in laughter, there's a different, number one, it's not really expected. So it's like, oh my God, they're making me laugh. Yes, I can relax, or yes, I'm going to enjoy this more. I bring laughter in because laughter helps us learn. When we're learning and we're laughing, we're more engaged. So it's a really powerful and strategic tool to help everyone stay engaged and just to make it a more interactive and dynamic experience. But the expectation in comedy is make me laugh or I'm out of here. We'll leave a show. If we're not laughing 10 minutes in and it's terrible, we're out of there. You don't do that in any other setting ever. But we also don't really consciously think about it. It's just sort of, you wouldn't go to a opera and leave if you just wouldn't. I don't think there's any other medium. You wouldn't go to a Cirque du Soleil and go, I don't like the way that they're, swinging, so I'm going to get out of here. But if you saw a comedian that you thought was terrible, you wouldn't hesitate for a second and leave, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think only when you've been on the other side do you realise that, like, we are harsh audiences.
That's a lot of pressure for the comedian.
Yeah.
So, again, like, how do you go through 55 minutes of maintaining that energy and engaging the crowd?
Lots of lollies. No, I'm joking.
Sugar and caffeine.
I had quite a storytelling narrative and an arc through my shows. So I had a clear beginning, middle and end. In my second comedy show, I brought multimedia in. So I had like a little bit of it wasn't a show reel. It was basically like I had pieces to camera that like vox pops that I did on the street. So that was part of changing the level of engagement from talk to a different medium. I also have a lot of interaction, lots of banter. I think that helps a lot as well. But we don't always need that. Some comedians you go and see and it's just like you just sit there and you're just like, oh, I just want to listen to you forever. I wish this show was 3 hours long.
Yeah. And it feels like 20 minutes.
Yeah. The most important part is reading the room. Okay. Like if things are going pear-shaped, you can't keep doing what you're doing. I think that was one of the biggest skills that I learned, which now has made me a really good speaker, because I can tell if the energy's off, change, pivot. Because if the energy sucks or it's just something's just gone wrong, or you've said something and it didn't go down well, you have to have that flexibility to adjust. That's crucial.
And that was just something you've learned, or is that something?
That's something you learn on the job. That was what I learned from doing so many 5-minute sets and shows where I finished and I was like, oh my God, that was terrible. And the next night I was, oh my God, that was amazing. It's the hard moment that made me go, oh gosh, what do I have to change? What do I have to do?
So do you reflect on good shows and bad shows, or just bad shows?
It was a long time ago, comedy. I mean, I still do it when
well, what would you recommend to somebody doing it now? Like,
definitely both, 1,000%. I think we learn more from the bad, because it's like, well, what actually went wrong? But
and what's the process there? Like, how do you know? Like, you finish your show, there wasn't many laughs, it felt terrible.
Yeah.
Like, what's the process? Like, how do you go back through and
film yourself?
Okay.
And listen back. Yeah, and definitely watch to see, because in comedy a lot of it comes down to the nuances. It's like, have you paused? Could you pause longer? Because often comedians will roll over their own laughs. So we are actually navigating, and if I'm telling a joke to you, I can be in charge of, to a degree, how much laughter is happening. So if I say a joke, right, and then I pause, that's a cue for you to go, oh, there's space for laughter. If I then decide to do, like, if I'm being sarcastic and then you laugh and I go, like, really? That's another second beat that I can get in there, right? So you're basically getting 2 laughs out of one potential joke. So a lot of it does come down to the experience of going, if I just change a word, or I change a tiny inflection here, or I add a little bit of a pause there, or, ooh, they were about to laugh and then I raced into the next joke. What if I just pause a little bit longer there? Or it's the pausing, the beats, the expression, the inflection, all of that is crucial.
That's cool.
That is the art form of comedy. Like, if you see a really good comedian, it's not just content, it's not just what they write. It is, the delivery is huge, which is why you can have amazing joke, one comedian, absolutely kills, which is, nails it, and another completely bombs. And it can all come down to delivery. So
comedy is first and then public speaking?
Yeah.
Do you think, like, what lesson did you learn from being a comedian that you used in public speaking?
Oh, so much. Reading the room, big one.
Okay.
Giving the audience what they want and what they need, and understanding when to change the energy. Huge.
So is that want and need to do with the energy, or is that, like, what does the room want or need? When you say that, what do you mean?
So if everyone's talking, I know I need to flip the energy and pivot it and stop. You can't keep going if you're trying to battle against a crowd that just wants to have a moment to do something different. Or, if the speaker before me was really serious, I know I'm going to have to either come up right up top with a joke, or I have to acknowledge what's just happened so that you're really reading what has just happened so it can be a seamless transition. That's huge as well. It's reading every single element. It's also acknowledging. Comedy taught me to acknowledge the awkward. So it's pretty much like, what's happening right now in this moment? What are you thinking? What am I thinking? What is the general consensus in the room? And how do I speak to that? And then when you do that, you're totally tuned in with your audience rather than just coming and delivering what you think you need to deliver. So let's say a bird smashed against that window and I'm trying to just, tell you all about why this is the best tripod in the world. You'd be like, is she listening to me? Can she not see that there was a bird? Like, your mind would go, what's going on? How did she not hear that? How, honestly, is she half deaf? Like, whatever. If I stop and go, okay, was that just literally a bird? I'm tuning into literally what has just happened. So in that moment, I'm taking, 20 seconds out of whatever the, session should be about, but we're having a moment of connection, which then can become a callback. And a callback in comedy is when you come back to an original joke and you loop back around to it. So there's a lot of that stuff. Like, a lot of speakers are very focused on just getting through what they need to get through. But like stuff will happen in the room. Like if a mobile phone goes off, I love it. At a corporate event, if a mobile phone goes off, I don't fly past it. I stop. I'm like, okay, whose mobile phone was that? And everyone just looks around. You see one. I said, who's got their hand? Who's leaning down into their handbag? And then there's like someone pointing to the person next to them. They're going, it's them, it's them. And I was like, can we just get a round of applause for the only person that left their phone on? Amazing, amazing. Put your head up. Put your head up. We love you. We still want you here. So it turns something that could have been like an awkward moment into this group experience.
When you first started doing the public speaking, did you record like you did with your comedy shows?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not as religiously, because timing and beats and all of that sort of like crowd work wasn't as important, but yes.
Because the crowd wasn't there judging you, expecting to be entertained.
Yeah, and also the vision is different. So if a keynote, you're there to educate, then the educational elements are the most important, and the way that you engage. I mean, it's all important, but different objectives.
One thing I find people struggle with is with education.
Yeah.
So there's more information out there than ever. But for one example, there's never been more information to be a healthy human. Like easy, accessible as well. But
Hi, ChatGPT. How can I become healthy today?
Exactly.
And avoid people in the gym who, what was on your list? Who are inconsiderate, have bad postures and waste time. And it's going to give me the best response ever.
And the information's there. But heart attacks, heart disease, all that sort of stuff is on the rise. So the more information doesn't necessarily mean, people are using it. So how do you take information that you get employed to take a show or to give a speech about this? How do you take that and give it to people so they absorb it and use it?
Again, where comedy comes in.
Okay.
Humour helps us. It softens our heart, right? If you see someone hit the stage and in a second there's a lightness or there's a warmth, we just relax. And we're like, oh, this isn't going to be an hour of hell or boring. We go, oh, okay, you know what? We're going to have a decent time. So that immediately is definitely a first point. And also, it depends on the audience, but I do think that laughter leads to more engagement in all instances.
Okay.
Because we're more receptive and we're more open-minded. And when we're more open-minded and we're more relaxed, we're more able to see different perspectives.
Most of what you've been saying is you being able to, I guess, pay attention and listen.
Me what? I thought I'd have to explain that to you, but you got it. Thank you.
But a lot of people will walk into a room, not pay attention to anything, not notice the things that annoy them, all that sort of stuff. So
I see everything.
Yeah. So how do people start learning how to see everything?
Good question.
Because I think it's very important to living a long, healthy, happy life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good question. How do you start to notice the small details and how do you start to notice the subtle? I think there's an exercise that I love by one of my favourite teachers, and she always says, have a look around and notice 3 things you haven't noticed. Her name's Sonia Choquette. She's awesome. And that's an exercise that I think would be a good place to start, to train yourself, to just get into a room and it's like, what haven't I noticed? Because it forces you to become present in the moment. And then you see new things. Like, Jack, tell me, what are 3 things you haven't noticed before in this room?
I notice everything.
Oh, come on.
Okay, the light up top there along the curtain rail. Told you I notice everything.
Okay, one thing's good enough. Yeah. Good enough.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good exercise.
But even that stopped me, and I sort of almost disconnected from this whole podcast, and I'm like, okay, what else is... Yeah.
So we just want to train ourselves to see everything. I think it all comes back to, how do you see things in a different way? How do you open your own perspective so that you can... Because if we just stay in our own lens and our own view, like, it's great, it's comfortable, but it's like we don't grow.
And I think that's very important now, because people can get stuck in rabbit holes. Again, social media, all that sort of stuff, YouTube. People start watching a video on a certain topic, politics, money, all that sort of stuff. And then all of a sudden they're like, this is happening. And so, I think trying to disconnect from that and see the rest of the world and bringing humour to it is a good point to start.
And also mindfulness. Mindfulness was a big part in my journey. And as soon as I started to practice mindfulness, I was like, oh my God, the sky's blue. Oh my gosh, I can feel the sun on my arms. Oh my gosh, that green of the grass is so vibrant. That was huge.
How do you start talk more about that?
Mindfulness. Yeah. I started with body scans, like just audio body scans and just like tuning into different parts of my body. And then when I started years ago, I was like, I can't. How do I become... My mind's already full. There's so much going on. I don't want to do this. But then as soon as you move past the I'm fighting this, and you start to see that you're starting to actually see things differently, it's amazing.
If you had a room, so you do get employed to give education, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But you had 1,000 people sitting there.
Well, this is going to be
and
fun.
It's you.
It's a challenge, yeah.
You can give a speech on anything you want to help them. What would you give?
One of my things that I love to talk about is how I accidentally became a magician. I unexpectedly and accidentally became a magician. As you know, you live in Melbourne. We had more lockdowns than any other city in the entire world, during which time I painted everything in my apartment in glitter, glue and sparkles. And it got to lockdown, I can't remember what number it was, and I had maxed out my crafting capacity. I was like, I'm done. There's glitter everywhere. I got nothing else. I got no more creativity in my tank. And I was given a challenge, and the challenge was try something new and be a beginner. And I'm like, what else can I do? I've done everything. And so I thought, I wonder if I could learn magic. And so I went onto YouTube and I typed in kids magic trick learn, and I learned how to make a crayon disappear, and I just fell head over heels in love. And I was just like, the wonder and the joy and the surprise of that experience made me go, I need to take this to more people because it's amazing. So that story of reconnecting with that inner child, that inner joy, that inner light, that inner spark, and knowing that we can control how connected we are to that in every single moment based on how playful we are, that is what I love to present on. One of the things that I love.
So what's the message to those 1,000 people in the room?
Find what lights your heart on fire and do it. Find what makes your spirit sing and do it. And most importantly, don't ever lose connection with the power of play and the sense of play, because that keeps us young. And that is, for me, that disconnected me from the madness and the chaos that was all around me. Because when we find an activity that makes us so joyful, and we get so immersed in it, and again, it comes back to what we were saying about confidence at the start, and we lose track of time, nothing can impact us emotionally when we are super connected to that deep, deep spirit, love, joy, inner child, whatever you want to call it. So the power of play is,
Love it.
Yeah.
Jordana, thanks for coming on.
Oh, my pleasure.
Where can people find you, everything you're doing?
Oh, good question. jordanab.com.au. On Instagram as well. You'll tag me. I try to spell it, but it's pretty hard. Instagram. You can find me. Type me into Google. I'm everywhere.
And
classic.
You've just released or releasing a podcast?
Yes. Brand new podcast drops next week called Fuel Your Confidence, where every second week I interview amazing speakers and MCs and people I've met from the industry. And then every other week it is me talking about failures, lessons, learnings that have helped me on my own journey.
Perfect.
So,
by the time this episode drops, your first episode will be out. So I'll link it in the show notes. Everybody can go and listen or watch YouTube as well.
Yes.
Sweet.
Amazing.
All right. Thanks again.
Thank you. Look at your glitter chest. Look at that. Yes. Amazing.
Sign of a good episode.
Awesome.